Blog Talk Radio.
Any other human being whose cruciform control, no longer in search of meaning, I'll utilize my soul to be a messenger, to be a radical, to be loved. Be a messenger. Be a radical, be loved. Falling from the matrix, why is what can set you free. And if you look behind the curtain and then into the mirror, then I think you'll see. Be a messenger, be a radical. Up with us all. The scars that you get each day make you stronger somehow in some way. Look for your own truth in your heart when it's told. You know, it may seem like a coda, but I learned it from my Baba. It's not what you believe, it's what you do. It's what you do. It's what you do. What you doing now? In a fraction of an inch, and loving all is one. It's supposed to be a cinch. Be a messenger, be a radical, be loved. Be a messenger, be a radical.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Saturday night. That was I Am Loved by indie music artist Ed Roman. He has been on the show before, and his music always makes me feel so good. So with it being a rainy night in Florida, I decided to play that one. This is Off the Chain. I'm your host, Yvonne Mason. I want to welcome you all to the show, and I want to once again, I know y'all get tired of hearing it, but we're going to keep saying it. I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all are the reason this show is so successful. Like I tell you at every show, this is not my show. It is your show. You, the listener, you, the guest. Y'all are the ones that have made this show so successful. And ladies and gentlemen, we are in our second year. The month of July, celebrate the second year. We started on July the 26th, 2016, and when I started, I thought, well, I would be happy if I got 10,000 listeners just on the show. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we surpassed that in the first 6 months. We are now in our second year, and just on the show alone, we have reached 126,566 listeners. And Australia, I want to say thank you very much because y'all continue to be our biggest listening base. And I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for giving us the Teskey Brothers because those guys are so rocking. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't listened to the Teskey Brothers, go pull up their music. They are a blues band that should be in the Mississippi Delta or on Bourbon Street on a corner because they are absolutely, I don't know where they came from, but they need to be on Bourbon Street or in the Delta. They're absolutely marvelous. Now, when you add all the podcasts that we are now on, which includes iTunes and YouTube and FM.com and TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podcast.com, Podcast Garden, Reverb Nation, ladies and gentlemen, we are on Reverb Nation, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. We now have an audience reach of almost 200,000 listeners. So we're growing by leaps and bounds, and again, I am so, so grateful. Y'all don't know the opportunity that you are giving the guests to be heard in places they might not be heard, like Sudan and Egypt and Israel and Germany and France and Australia and Portugal and Spain and South Africa and all the little countries that they might not be heard. So I am so, so very, very grateful. Now, there's two ways, ladies and gentlemen, that you can get on the show, and we have just about filled up through December. I've got maybe 1 or 2 dates left in December. So I'm booking for next year. But there's two ways to get on the show. One, you can come on the show as a guest. I don't care if you're an author, a musician, you have a platform, you have a cause, you have a political affiliation, or you just want to chat. I don't care. It's your show. You can do what you want to. Or if you're kind of nervous about doing that and you want to become a sponsor on the show, you can do that too. And what you do if you want to become a sponsor on the show, I don't charge an arm and a leg. I don't intend to make any money off this. I charge $10 for 30 days. If you send me an MP3 or you send it in written form and I read it, and I send you an invoice through PayPal, I run it for 30 days. No matter how many shows I have in that 30 days, I run that ad for all 30 days of those shows. Normally the shows run Wednesday through Saturday nights. If for whatever reason, because most of you know my husband is very, very ill, if for whatever reason I have to reschedule a show, the ad follows the show. So you're still going to get your 30 days regardless. And what you do, if you want to be on the show or if you want to become a sponsor for the show, is you contact me at offthechainradio@yahoo.com. I'll tell you what I need from you. I'll tell you what to send me, and then we'll get you booked either as a sponsor or as a guest. It'll be the best hour that you've ever spent, I'm going to tell you. So with that being said, I want to welcome a couple of new sponsors to the show that have joined us. And there will be even 2 more later on in the show. But I want to start off with J. Traveler Pelton. She has a trilogy called the Oberlin Trilogy, and one of the books in the trilogy is The Infant Conspiracy, and it can be found on Amazon. And it goes like this. In 2018, the Oberlins are a shadow family. The parents, Noel and Violet, along with their children, are a very close-knit family in more ways than one. They all work in the family farm. The children are supposed to take over the farm after the brothers return from their hitch with Uncle Sam so the parents can retire. Yeah, fat chance. But things go south real fast when a savage virus is turned loose on the unsuspecting public. Join the Oberlins as they set out to make the world a safer place. So, no, you can't go now, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to wait. But after the show, check out J. Traveler Pelton and the author of The Infant Conspiracy. I also want to welcome a gentleman that has also been on the show. His name is John Isaac Jones, and he has a book of short stories called Alabama Stories. Now, this gentleman is from Alabama, and this collection of short stories is written from the eyes of a 12-year-old boy in the Cotton State. And I've read this little book. It's cute as it can be. He puts you right in the middle of rural Alabama. Check it out on Amazon Kindle. It's fun, entertaining, and delightful. Now, remember I said I wanted to thank Australia because they're our biggest listening base? I want to thank them again because they helped this next sponsor go to number 1 in their country. Author Diane Moat, she has a book series called the Sam Holden series. The first in the series is called Doggone, and she has released the second in the series called Dog Fight. Wherever a helpless animal whimpers in the dark and wherever the system fails to protect said animal, she'll be there, and she isn't giving up anytime soon. You have been warned. When Sam Holden receives a tip about a brutal dog fighting ring, she embarks on some of her most dangerous acts of vigilantism yet. The monster known as the puppeteer circles Sam's world while she unknowingly circles his. As they chase each other, will Sam put those she loves most in harm's way in order to break up the ring? With time running out and animals in need, the dangerous life Sam's created begins to eclipse any other life that she could ever leave. These are Diane Moat's Doggone and Dog Fight on Amazon. After the show, also check her out. Now then, I want to welcome a first-time guest to the show, and I hope that it will be not the only time, because when I started doing, y'all know I do a deep dive on all my guests. I have to do that. I found she is so fascinating, and her characters are so fascinating, but she herself is fascinating. She is author Melinda Kucsera, and she writes fantastic short stories, novels, and books when she's not being kidnapped by dragons or chased by armies of fictional creatures. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that alone just said, okay, go do your deep dive on her. So, Melinda, welcome to the show. I am so glad that you're spending a few minutes with me, and let's just get started.
Thank you for having me.
You are quite welcome. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Melinda doesn't yet understand that this hour is going to fly by. And I did not get to tell her that, and most of y'all know that with my first-time visitors to the show, I'll tell them that they're not going to believe it when I tell them our show is about to come to an end because it's going to fly so fast. So be warned, Melinda, when I tell you that our time is coming to an end, you're going to say, I can't believe it's gone by so fast. So just keep that in the back of your memory bank. Let's talk about you for a minute.
Sure.
Fictional characters, dragons, kidnappings, chased. Was this something from your childhood that you brought into your adult life? Have you always had spun these tales of mythical creatures and guardian angels and dragons in your mind?
Yes, I was that little kid in school staring out the window watching fictional battles play out instead of paying attention. I freely admit this. Thankfully, I'm an audio learner.
So how many times did you get in trouble because you weren't sitting forward facing the teacher?
Oh, pretty often. Like, what are you looking at out there? Was the common question, and then sometimes but also my little sister used to get bored in her classroom in kindergarten, and she'd wander over to my classroom to see what I was doing. So the teacher would be like, what are you looking at out there? And I'd look over at her and see my little sister out in the hallway. I'd be like, oh, no, we need to go take her back to class. This is a common occurrence. So it was kind of fun, though.
So let me ask you this. When did you decide that you wanted to bring your characters to the enjoyment of others? Because I've been to your website. I've seen your book covers. I've read about your characters. And I haven't even read any yet, but I'm already hooked. Did you start this journey intentionally? Did you fall into it? Did you have to do something else to get here?
It was always something I was going to do someday because I've been writing them for years, but it was always something I was going to do someday, not today, you know. And then in 2014, my sister passed away, and before she died, her last word to me was, she said, you know, you need to these stories that you used to tell me that you're always writing. You need to publish them. You need to, promise me that you'll publish them. And so, and after that, I had to do it. I had to take the plunge and figure out how to get it out there and do it, because that was her last wish. That was the last thing she said to me. That was about a week before she died. I think she had some feeling that the end was coming.
Well, before the show, we talked about your sister's affliction. Now, ladies and gentlemen, y'all that know me know that my husband is an insulin-dependent diabetic along with his other ailments. And, Melinda, correct me if I'm wrong, your sister died from complications of diabetes, correct?
Yes. Yes, according to the coroner's report, that's what it was. So.
In your life and her life, did you find it difficult that the unassuming or the assuming public, they do not understand that diabetes is a very personal illness. It's not one size fits all. And two, it's not what one eats that causes the problem. It's the pancreas does not do its job that causes the illness.
Yes. And another thing that people don't often know is that your body works against you. Your liver stores sugar. And sometimes you can have perfect control and eat, just vegetables. And your body could decide, to more sugar in our blood, because your body doesn't understand the insulin floating around. It's not something it made. It's not even human, the insulin that the diabetics are putting into themselves. And sometimes it'll punch, and it'll punch out sugars, and they'll go from being, somewhat in range to being sky high, and it's very frustrating for them. You can do everything right, and your body can just work against you.
And then it can go in the opposite direction just as fast. You can be bouncing along.
Yes.
On an even keel, and then all of a sudden you look over and the one you love is sitting there going, I think I'm in trouble. And my husband has a service dog. He's a little Maltese, and he alerts me when he's going into crisis, because they can smell a sweet odor that comes out of the pores in the mouth of a diabetic that we can't smell. So he'll tell me when his daddy's in trouble. And when he's getting ready to go in trouble, whether he needs orange, our staple around here is orange juice, chocolate, and peanut butter.
Yeah, that's how it was or in my home too, with my sister.
Did you find it frustrating when well-meaning people said, well, my Uncle John or my Aunt Susie or my daddy was a diabetic, and this is what you need to do?
Yes, because often they're talking about type 2 diabetes, which is different. There's things that the correct procedures for type 2 diabetes are not always the right thing when you're insulin dependent, which is type 1 diabetes. Because we have actually type 2 diabetics in the family, and they'd be my sister would be like, no, that's not the way that I need to handle this. Because with type 2 diabetes, you're still making insulin, but not enough.
My husband started out as, now they call it insulin dependent or non-insulin, but he started out as a type 2 diabetic. He was on pills forever and a day. Well, the pills quit working because the body quit working, the organs quit working.
Yeah.
So he went from a type 2 to a type 1. And we have some well-meaning friends that say, well, Yvonne, you need to do this. I'm a diabetic, you need to do that. And I'm going, I am perfectly capable of taking care of my husband. Thank you very much. But it is a very personal illness. It's not one size fits all.
No, it's not. Everybody's body is different. My sister had friends that were also insulin dependent, and they were always in range, and she'd be frustrated. She'd be so frustrated. She's like, I'm doing everything right, and their sugar is in range, and mine is always high because you're, like I said, your body doesn't, if your body just fights against you sometimes.
And then it gets tired. Did you find that,
Yeah.
Melinda, that your sister her body just got tired? Because it's an internal battle with the organs and the bloodstream and the body's natural insulin and just the psychosis of it. I mean, it's almost like being bipolar. You go from one extreme of the emotion spectrum to the other, and there's sometimes it's so hard to find a balance.
It is. It's and there's also a lot of complications with diabetes that people don't know about. There's side effects for insulin, and if you're on it for a very long time, it has an effect on you. On
Yep.
your mental processes, on everything. Because your body didn't make it. It didn't come from another human being. Most insulin comes from, I believe it's pigs
Yep.
or other animals. So it's something that you're sticking in your body that it didn't make. Sometimes she'd put the insulin in and it would not affect your sugar at all. She'd have to take another dose. So your body would just be like, I don't know what this is. You could get a bad batch of insulin and your body goes like, I don't know what this is, but I'm not going to touch this. I'm going to just
and I'm not liking it, so I'm spitting it out, and I'm going to beat you up because of it. You're going to pay.
Exactly, and it's very difficult for diabetics to heal because their body's constantly at war with itself. So just a paper cut can be very difficult to heal, especially if it's on a foot or something.
And what people don't realize is it causes heart attacks, strokes, blindness, loss of limbs. It causes blockages in the arteries. It causes the kidneys to shut down. It also will cause and can cause dementia, Alzheimer's. I mean, just a whole range of things that diabetes causes.
I think towards the end that was my sister was getting something. I don't know if it was dementia or what, but she just wasn't the same. There was something. She just wasn't the same person. Like she just changed over time. She was young too. My sister was 29 when she died. She'd been a diabetic for I think since she was 13 or 14, and it changes you. And they had her, and it's not just the diabetes, it's not just the insulin, because diabetics are also on many other drugs because they end up having thyroid issues, or they end up having other issues. Your blood pressure, your blood cholesterol, your body just doesn't work right when one thing stops. You end up on a range of medications, and that just multiplies the negative effects, the side effects. It's the more stuff you're on, the more likely you're going to have a problem from the side effects, and some of them have fairly deadly side effects.
and not only do they have side effects, but if the doctors are not communicating with each other or somebody else, they give you duplicates, or they give you stuff that counteracts with each other. So not only is your body fighting off the diabetes, but now it's fighting off all this artificial junk you're putting in your system. And it says, okay, watch this. I'm going to show you who's boss.
No, that's true. And then also you have hurdles with insurance. Every time my sister changed jobs, her diabetes was considered a prior illness. They wouldn't cover any of it for 6 months, a year. And the doctor visit, you have to visit a doctor far more frequently with diabetes to make sure everything was okay, to get your medications. They only give you, they don't give you a year's supply of things. They give you 6 months or 3 months, or and you have to keep coming back, and all of that is very expensive because you have your regular doctor, you have your endocrinologist, you have your other doctor,
the lab work.
It can get very, very expensive, and then if you happen to be out of work for a short amount of time, it's like, well, where do you get insulin from? You
can't go get it on the street corner because the street drug doesn't work very well.
No, and even and if you're out of work and you have to buy your own insurance, like my sister couldn't afford it. They wanted like thousands of dollars a month because the costs for a diabetic are very expensive. Even though she was relatively young at the time, she was out of work. She was out of work for the year before I think it was 2 years before she passed away. The company she was working for went under, and they laid everyone off, and she's been looking for another job. So that was extra stress on top of the illness. She was interviewing like crazy. She was an accountant.
She wasn't resting?
No. I mean, she did, but she needed to find a job because her insurance was very expensive, and diabetes is a difficult illness.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, honey, you're preaching to the choir. I'm going to tell you what. It took me a long time to finally convince my husband that he needed an endocrinologist and not just a regular GP, because his diabetes was uncontrollable, and the pills that the GP had him on was pills that had not been used in years, and it was causing him to gain weight, which affects the diabetes, which affects the heart, the lungs, the liver, yada, yada, yada. And it became a vicious circle. And I finally said, we're done.
But it's like everything makes diabetics gain weight. It's like nearly impossible to lose weight. You need to have your sugar in range all the time, perfect numbers, and then you might be able to lose a little bit of weight, because in diabetes your body's constantly at war with itself. So what does your body do? Like, it's either in starvation. Your body constantly feels like it's in starvation mode. So it hangs on to every calorie you put in, which she found that very challenging. No matter what she did, she could not lose weight.
See, we have already educated folks, and I know they're going, wow, I didn't know that. See, ladies and gentlemen, we are informative, we're educational, we're also a lot of fun. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with author Melinda Kucsera, and we're going to learn about her last name, because her last name is so interesting, it just rolls off the tongue, but it has a little story behind it. So we will be right back. This is Off the Chain. I'm your host, Yvonne Mason, with my guest, author Melinda Kucsera, and we'll be right back.
Horses See Ghosts, a new poetry book by Gannat Wise. It's been called Poetry for the Rest of Us. Amazon.
Best-selling and award-winning author of true crime and crime fiction, Yvonne Mason is back with a brand new book, The Pink Canary, a book that delves into the life of a drag queen and a marvelous whodunit. You can find this and all of Yvonne's other works on Amazon.com, or find Yvonne Mason on Facebook and Twitter.
He's gonna kill me.
Buy your copy of Pink Canary now.
Do you have cougars on your porch swing? Are horses your new best friend? Do your nicest shoes get buried knee-deep in snow as your toes turn blue? Are you bothered by wolves at your woodpile? No, not that kind of wolf. Join wildlife artist and author Nancy Quinn and her family as they discover an exciting new life in Go West, Young Woman, a true Montana adventure. Available online and in bookstores. Or visit QuinnWildlifeArt.com for a personalized signed copy. Critics agree, it's a hoot.
A struggling city, its beloved baseball team, an antique camera, and photos from that camera that bear an image from the pit of hell, an entity only a select few can see. Journalism professor Buddy Cullen is determined to track this demon down. But who is the hunter and who is the prey? And who will be the next target of mankind's mortal foe? Mortal Foe, available at Amazon.com.
Hi, this is Winona
and Jade inviting you to join us
and our wonderful guests on the And I Thought Women's Cave podcast
on Blog Talk Radio to learn more about our books, the And I Thought series, and
the Misfit Guides. They're available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNobles.com.
Or just to see what your ladies are up to, you can find all of that out on www.andwethought.com.
So peace and love from Winona
and Jade and our books.
You're so silly.
You silly.
Remember,
did you write that? That's funny.
Remember to visit us at andwethought.com.
And we are back with Off the Chain. I'm your host, Yvonne Mason, with my guest tonight, author Melinda Kucsera. And before we get into the characters, Melinda was telling me about her last name because I wasn't real sure how to pronounce it, and I sort of phonetically sounded it out, and I phonetically sounded it out the way that she pronounces it. But you have an interesting story about this. Do you mind telling the folks? I love it because it is so true about a lot of the immigrants that came over from across the pond, across the halfway around the world, and the name's changed.
Yes. My actually it starts before my grandfather came here. His mother was visiting her sister who was here, and she was pregnant to him, and so he ended up being born here. And then my great grandmother's minister visit went back to somewhere in Hungary and took her new baby with her back to the farm over there. We don't know exactly where he lived in Hungary, what part, or the borders have changed a lot during World War II, so it may not have even been inside Hungary. Nobody's 100% certain. My uncle's been back many, many times to try and figure it out, but he can't, unfortunately. There aren't any records left since the World War II. And so the war started, and my grandfather had grown up in Hungary, or what was then Hungary, and he got drafted into the Army because he was a young man at that time. And I don't know if he saw any sort of action or anything. I know one of his friends was, had a bit of a rank, and he said, hey, why are you here? You were born in the U.S. Why don't you should go there? You should get out of here. This is not your war. You weren't born here. So I don't know how exactly he got from Hungary to the U.S. I've been trying to find that out from various relatives, but nobody seems to know the answer about how he got out of war-torn Europe and came to the U.S. But he did come. He arrived in New York City. I went to Ellis Island, but I didn't find him there. And then I found out later that Ellis Island was just for immigrants. If he was born here, he probably didn't. He would not have had his. He would have been in he would have been in some different records because it kind of shuffled things around. So at some point I want to figure that out because I think it'd be kind of neat. So he came here, but he'd grown up in Hungary, so he could not speak a word of English. He could not read nor write English. So the family joke was always that we don't actually know if this is, how you spell our last name or if it's correct at all. Like, he just insists it's Kucsera. So that's my interesting little story about our last name.
It's amazing because we've all come from somewhere. That's a given. But the stories like this one, your great grandfather, a naturalized born American, raised in Hungary, fought in World War II and war-torn Europe, and then came back to his homeland and couldn't speak English.
Nope, because he was raised elsewhere.
We can't make this stuff up.
Yeah. So whenever people talk about immigrant things, I'm like, hey, I wouldn't be here if my grandfather hadn't come here. And my great-great-great-grandmother on my mother's side, she wanted to join a nunnery. Her family didn't have any money for us, so she was like, you know what, I'm going to the U.S. And she came over here.
Wow. How amazing. Well, I'm glad you're here, Melinda, because I'm having a ball talking to you. Now, I found out something interesting about you, and that you love listening to the great courses.
Yes. Oh, my God.
I do, too. I learned so much from them.
I love them.
They're an addiction.
They're the reason. They are. They're the reason my credit debt is so high. Oh, my God. I love that. I love them. You can learn so much, and and they get these really interesting people to do these. Some of them, like, they need their own shows. They're just the way they present things. I was listening to one about the history of the English language, and you'd think would be very boring, but like, it was just the most fascinating 24 hours I've ever spent listening to a book. It was awesome.
Well, see, I have a natural affinity to learn new things anyway. So it was just a natural progression to start listening to the great courses, especially when I was working on the historical novel that took place during the war between the states. I got that whole series of lessons on the Civil War. I learned stuff I didn't learn in school.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God, and they're always finding out new things, so it's such fun. I listened to the one about exoplanets. Yeah, it's like just the things you learn in there.
I also found out that you work in the publishing industry.
Yes.
What do you do?
I'm a project manager for IT for a scholarly publisher. They have, I believe, 90 different journals. They have a couple of trade publication books and 2 trade magazines. And I've been there since 2009.
So it would be fair to say that it was just a natural progression for you to put pen to paper and publish it.
Well, I've been writing these stories since I was a little kid, so
yeah,
I mean, it was something I was always going to do, but yeah.
But for most indie authors, and I've been in this business for a long time, for most of them, they say, well, I want to publish a book, and they have no clue where to even start. You at least had a foundation of what you needed to do to get where you wanted to be.
I had some idea, but then the indie publishing thing is so different from traditional publishing. It's
true.
There's a lot I didn't know. There was a lot I needed to learn, and I didn't immediately jump into publishing. I started the website. It started out as a blog, and I did that for a couple of years while I was trying to figure out, just kind of get over, I needed to grieve for my sister and try to pull together. I had written so many things that I hadn't actually finished any of them into an actual book. I had half-finished drafts of like 12 different books, but in the same series, but I hadn't actually finished one of them. So I
understand that feeling. I understand that, but that's because our minds are so creative that we can't keep it all in. So we have to just write things down even if we jump from one part of the series to another. And I also read
when you finish a story, then it can't change. But if you don't finish it, then it can keep changing, evolving. Like you can keep finding new things in it. It's like a never-ending feature film that can keep going off in different directions and finding new cool little twists. So there was that too. That sense that if I ended it, then the adventure is kind of over, and writing it for me is an adventure, and I didn't want that. So,
bless your heart.
I still struggle with that.
Yeah, I understand that. It's like the never-ending story that we read as children.
Mhm.
Now,
I love that.
I read a statement in one of the interviews that you gave, and you were talking about creating killer audiobooks. And as I'm reading what you meant by that, I'm going, amen, big amen, because I've listened to many, many audiobooks in my lifetime since they started coming out, and some of them put me to sleep because they are so boring. The narrator is boring. The narrator is going just like this with no excitement in their voice, and it never changes. And I'm going, what in the world? And then sometimes the music overpowers the storyline. You nailed it when you talked about creating killer. It has to be like a movie in your head that you're listening to.
I agree. 100%.
How many bad audiobooks have you listened to in your lifetime?
I can't. It's hard to.
Hi, this is Winona and Jade inviting you.
I'm sorry, my radio's got a poltergeist.
It's your poltergeist. Did your poltergeist have a name?
Well, I'm not sure, but just for some reason, that last ad decided it wanted to play, and I'm going, no, we're not doing that. We already played you. But this is what happens on live radio. But back to bad audiobooks. Have you listened to as many bad audiobooks as you have read bad books?
Actually, I've listened to far more audiobooks than I've physically read books. I own over 1,600 audiobooks, and I've listened to 95% of them.
Wow.
whenever Audible has a sale, I go through the sale and I look at the genres that I like, and I just go through and add everything to cart that sounds like it might be a fun listen, and then I just listen to them through the year. I have other authors that I follow, like their series, and I'm always looking for someone new to fall in love with. So, and yeah, I'm bad. So most of the books that I've listened to are really, really good. I'd say like the bad ones, there aren't as many. Some of them are more information dense. There's one right now that I'm trying to listen to, The Silk Roads. It's all about the Orient and the trade routes and just kind of just to fill my own curiosity about the Middle East and all the different the history over there and the interaction with the West and all of our current problems came from somewhere. Everything that's going on. Like there's a deep history over there that I don't know a whole lot about. So, and I had done another book before this that I listened to about sort of like the history of the Roman Empire of the eastern side. About Byzantium and all of that. And that one was parts of it were a little bit dull, but it was also very interesting, and I was just curious. So that led me to The Silk Roads, and that one I'm struggling to get through because it's a lot of places and facts and figures, and the narrator is doing the best that he can. Like it's just very dry stuff, and I think that a lot of people don't understand. Like there's writing for people who are going to physically read a book, and then there's writing a book for audio, and I think because I am such an audiobook fanatic, and I freely admit this, I think I write more towards when I'm working on my own books, I have an app on my phone that will read them to me, and I'm constantly doing, checking, how things sound. Someday I want them to be an audiobook, and I want them to be a really good audiobook. So, but yeah, and I've noticed there's a definite difference in writing for more of a print medium and writing for something that's going to be spoken aloud.
Well, you just segued. You just perfectly segued right into my next question. Let's talk about, ladies and gentlemen, this woman is a creative writing fool. Let's talk about your books. You've got The Curse Breaker. There's 4 books in the series. The cover alone is mind-boggling. I didn't even checked out the synopsis. Tell me about these books. They're beautiful.
Thank you. I'm actually redoing the covers.
Why? I love the covers.
I did them
myself.
It's hard to get promotions from a lot of outlets. They turn me down a lot. They don't like the cover. So, and I also don't think that the covers represent well enough what the book actually is about. So I had a new artist do the box set cover, and cause I really wanted to show more, because it is very much an emphasis on the characters, and I wanted a cover that showed that was a little more playful, because the stories are fun. They're not, I feel like the current covers convey that they're dark, and they're not. It's not grim dark. This is not the depressing kind of fantasy that you put the book down and go, oh my God, I need to hug somebody. Because there are some books like that, but mine is not like that. So,
well, ladies, I'm just going to read you the synopsis of The Curse Breakers. Magic is illegal, but enchanted trees walk, ghosts beg for help, and demons plot. Sounds like my house. Neither is prepared when their plans collide and ensnare an untrained mag and his young son. Sarn will do anything to protect his son, even if that means taking on the enchanted forest, ghosts, monsters, and a power he cannot fully control. But he must hurry. Time's running out, and his master's calling. This is just from the cover and then the synopsis makes me want to go get it. I mean, no, y'all can't go now. You got to wait because there's more. Yes, there's more, ladies and gentlemen. Shards of the Present. This cover is, pardon the expression, it is a kick-ass cover.
Oh, thanks. That one's not out yet. I wanted to get it out. It started as a short thing that I wrote for my newsletter for the fun of it, and it just sort of, the characters, it just took on a life of its own, so it's becoming a full-fledged novel. I just need to finish it.
It's gorgeous. And y'all going to have to stay on her, ladies and gentlemen, because it goes like this. Some presents should stay wrapped, and some adventures should stay in the past. The hunt begins this winter. Winter is coming, to coin a phrase from George R. Martin. I love it.
Yeah. That one's a bit of a fun, it's meant to be a fun holiday rom, but I mean, there is still danger and magic and insanity because I wrote it, and that's what I write.
All right. Angelic Keeper.
Yes.
I don't know who does. See, I can't talk tonight. Who does your covers? But this cover, you're amazing. You are amazing. It's called The Angelic Keeper, ladies and gentlemen, and it's called This Summer, Not All Angels Come in Peace, and They're Not Alone. 1 demon, 2 dragons, 5 angels, and a pack of memory-stealing beasts stand between young woman and her past. That's a lot of aggravation. It looks like my normal day. When a supernatural conspiracy threatens her still-living twin and his young son, it's time for desperate measures. Sovan might be dead, but she won't let incorporality or amnesia stop her. To save her brother, she must first regain her past, but in doing so, she uncovers a dangerous secret an angel killed to protect, and he's not alone. When Sylvan crossed the line between life and death, she undermined the balance that underpins reality. Now a host of angels are out to stop her before she destabilizes it any further. For everything there's a price, even for saving those she loves. Unless Sylvan can find a loophole, all of reality might pay the ultimate price just so she can save her brother and his son, but she better hurry. Her magical twin is fighting for his life against a powerful demon bent on taking his soul, and his son is next in line. His Angelic Keeper is the first book in a humorous, action-packed sword and sorcery series. Say that fast 3 times. Starring Sylvan from the Cursebreaker series, and with no allies to help her, this plucky ghost must brazen her way through the formless, memory-leeching gray of limbo to the purple spheres of heaven itself, and that might not even be enough to stop what's coming. Oh, my goodness. How amazing is that?
That book is just a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. And ladies and gentlemen, Melinda does not run her website. Y'all know that as writers, the voices in our head, they take over our lives. They tell us what to do, and they just take. Well, her characters run her website. So when you go to look at the website, you're not going to see Melinda discussing things. You're going to see the characters talk. They also run the newsletter. Am I right?
Yes, they do.
And I bet they get you in a lot of trouble.
I'm frequently kidnapped and need to be saved by them in the newsletter. Yeah. I think this is this is the second time or third time I've been kidnapped by somebody who's mad at them, and my newsletter is sort of it's a melding of genres. I mean, it's sometimes we're in their world and it's all high fantasy fun. Sometimes they're in my world and they're, running around my office causing corporate mayhem.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the cover for The Enchanted and the cover for Darkens, that's all part of the Cursebreaker, right?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, these book covers are amazing. Even if you're not a fantasy lover, you're going to be, when you go and look at her. No, y'all can't go now. You got to wait. When you go and look at her covers and you read the synopsis to the books, I guarantee you will want to drop down into that land of dragons and ghosts and angels and demons and sorcery and beast and who knows what else Melinda's going to come up with, right?
It's also about families, too. I mean, the heart of the story is really this young father and his son and this sister series is about his sister, and it's really about that. It's fun. They get into a lot of mischief, not on purpose on their part.
So which story was it that your sister wanted you to complete and to publish that you made that promise about? The Curse Breakers. I kind of felt like that.
I've been working on that for a long time.
Is it just the 4 books, or are you going to add more to the series?
Oh no, I have drafts of many books. It's open-ended. It'll go on as long as the characters want it to go on, and they don't want it to ever end.
Well, there you go. So you could have
people.
All right, let me ask you this. If someone wanted to read the books but not read them in order, can they read them as standalones, or do they have to read them in order?
You can read His Angelic Keeper, Enchanted, Darkened, and Faceted. They can all be read as standalones. The 4th book, Falls, really follows very close. It picks up like moments after book 3 ended, so I wouldn't recommend reading that as a standalone. Nor would I recommend reading book 5, which I'm working on now, to either as a standalone. But I'm hoping that will be the end of that arc, and then the next story arc will start, and that one could be read as a standalone. It'll either be book 6 or book 7. Trying to keep a mix of books that are very heavily intertwined with, some books that are not as intertwined, so that people can kind of pick things up where they want. And I make sure, I have the characters write notes in the beginning of every single book and at the end of every single book, and they let people know, if you can read this as a standalone, or if you can't. They also give you sneak peeks and and make all sorts of promises that I, the author, need to keep at the end of each book. They put out nice little
your characters are so evil. They are so evil.
It's
evil.
It's the little boy from the story. He runs the website and the newsletter, and he does most of the notes. And so there's this fun back and forth in it. The 4th book ended on a cliffhanger, and I really don't like cliffhangers. So there's an apologetic note from him, and then I wrote this nice bonus sequence, which told you why this ended up being that way, because I wasn't going to write the book that way, but the characters just took the story in an unexpected direction, and it was just so interesting that I was like, I need to follow this where it goes, and it couldn't go to the kind of ending that I like to have, so they
did their thing. Melinda, I totally understand. There was a book that I was writing that I'd worked on, and it was the historical novel on the Civil War, and I wanted to write it one way, but the characters would not allow it, and every time I would sit down to write it the way I wanted to write it, I got complete writer's block. So when I said, okay, fine, here, y'all write the damn book, just use me as your vessel, it started flowing.
Yeah.
I hate when that happens.
Well, I took that moment where I had to follow where they went, and I wrote a little, a short story, a couple of 2,000 words, about how the characters mutinied and they ganged up on me, and I had a whole little sequence at the end of the book with the whole cast and them going back and forth about it, and just a humorous kind of thing, because that cliffhanger kind of left things not in a place not in a bad place. But I prefer the little boy in the story. I prefer to keep him in a safe place at the end of every book, and I couldn't do that at the end of this one. So this way you got to see him again and see that he's okay, and just a cute little sequence to just.
Oh, that is too
I don't
funny.
like to leave things. I don't like to end things on a sad note. So this way, that little bonus sequence is just pure fun. So it ends things on a happier note. I don't like that when you read a book at the end and it upsets you or gets you sad.
What the hell just happened? Yeah. You're not going to believe this, my dear one, but we are getting to the end of our hour.
Oh, okay.
See, I told you. It flies by. It does that. Once we get started, we've covered so many things. But, ladies and gentlemen, she's already agreed to come back. So I will get up with her and maybe bring her back and is January a good month for you to come back?
Sure. I will hopefully have the next 3 books that the characters have promised readers out. I hope.
Well, see, there you go. So she'll come back, yeah, and you will get a following on this show. Or the characters will get. I'm not so sure about you now that the characters have taken over everything. Characters will probably get a following. But that being said,
This is actually one of the first interviews I've done as me and not as the characters. Generally, if people give me one of those written things, fill out the 20 questions, I let the characters fill it out, and it ends up being hilarious. It's just more interesting than,
But it's been so interesting today. So what I would like to do is for you to tell everybody where you can be found, where your characters can be found, where the books can be found. And no, y'all can't go yet because you don't know where she can be found. So you're just going to have to hold on and wait and see. So tell everybody where you can be found, where the books can be found.
You can find me at my website. It's melindakucsera.com, and that's melindakucsera.com. And you can see there's a link at the top that says Enjoy Our Shenanigans. You can see back issues of the newsletter. They're in reverse chronological order, so you can kind of see what kind of mayhem they get up to each week, and see if it's your kind of mayhem. and you can join our newsletter. There's a link at the bottom of each one. And my books are on. 3 of my books are in pretty much every digital bookstore you can think of. If there's one that it's not in, just let me know, and I'll try to figure out how you get in there. And I have 3 of my books are only available in Amazon right now. I'm working on taking them out to out into the wide world. A little bit more complicated than I realized, so I'm working on that.
So and don't hang up when the show goes dark.
Sure.
But I do want to say thank you so much for spending an hour with me. It went by way too fast. And next time we'll maybe talk to a character or 2. So, ladies and gentlemen, join us on Wednesday night when we start our week up again with a whole new cast of guests. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening and for sharing the show. And there's a couple of things I always say at the end of every show. And one of them is people will forget your name. They will forget what you look like. They'll forget what you're wearing. But they will never, ever, ever forget how you make them feel. And everybody's on a journey, ladies and gentlemen, and sometimes that journey can be very difficult. So when you're out and about and someone is less than cordial, find something nice to say about them. Tell them they have a nice smile, even if they haven't smiled at you. Tell them they have a nice smile. I can promise you this, it will change not only the way they look at the world, but it will change the way that you look at the world and the way you feel inside. Because anytime that you make someone else feel special, then you know that you are special. And that is something else I say. You don't just feel special, be special. And if you want to achieve greatness, please stop asking permission, ladies and gentlemen, because nobody is going to give it to you. Just go out and achieve greatness. It doesn't matter what it is that you want to do. Just go out and do it. Don't ask permission. Just do it. Because there are people out there that live in a rabbit hole, and they want company there. And they don't mind who they drag down there with them. Their life is full of negativity, and they're not going to change. Cut the negativity out of your life. Life is too short. Achieve greatness, whether it's a garbage collector, whether it's a teacher, whether it's an awesome musician, whether it's the next president of the United States. Achieve greatness. So with that in mind, I want to say thank you once again to author Melinda Kucsera for spending an hour with me and being my guest and talking about a very painful subject, that is the love and loss of her sister. I appreciate the education and the information, and I know you all do too. And she is coming back. So with that being said, I want to say thank you again here from Off the Chain. I am your host, Yvonne Mason, with my guest tonight, author Melinda Kucsera, and we know that you all are going to have an excellent, excellent rest of the weekend. Until Wednesday night, ladies. When we start again, we wish you here all a good weekend, and we are now signing off. Yvonne Mason with Off the Chain and author Melinda Kucsera wish you a good night. Okay, now we are off the air, but everything we say will show up in the archive part of the show. But just remember, when the show archives, I'm going to put the link up, and I'm going to tag you in it. And then tomorrow, when I load it up on all those podcasts, I will also put that link up and tag you in it and take it and run with it everywhere. That is my gift to you, my friend.
Thank you. No, I will. I will definitely do that. Like I said, I wanted to put it in last week's newsletter, but I got so caught up in the whole designer issue. I ended up putting like an SOS in the newsletter and being like, what do I do with this? And a couple of them were like, we like your covers already. Just do them yourself. Don't listen to what anybody else says.
And see, you weren't nervous at all. The hour flew by. True?
Yeah, no, it was great. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Well, we're going to do it again in January. I will send you a couple of dates, and you let me know what's good for you, and then we'll just have fun again. And you will get a following on this show. Trust me, you will get one. People will want to know what she's going to do next. What are the characters going to do next? So I will send you some dates. We'll get it set up, and then I will send all this to you. And thank you again so much, my dear. I appreciate you so, so much.
Yeah, no, next time I would definitely love to let them know that. I didn't get to put this to status and what we were saying is that the series that I have, like I gave the main character a condition and in memory of my sister. I couldn't do diabetes because I live in a fantasy world, so I did epilepsy instead because I thought.
Whoa, sweet. See?
It's not true epilepsy, but it's a fantasy brand of it. There's so many like things where like people do magic and it doesn't have a cost. And so I created something where there is a cost, and he's got the little kid, and and that could be very difficult. You're in a difficult situation, and you're using all this magic, and you suddenly have a seizure. Like, what happens to your kid?
Oh, that'll be so neat to talk about, because in real life it happens too.
Yeah, I haven't like researched a lot about epilepsy. Like I said, it's like a fantasy brand of it, so I needed it to conform to certain magical rules. Nobody really knows what causes epilepsy, or what triggers seizures and things. So I made some rules about that. There's certain things he does in magic that will 100% of the time cause a seizure no matter what, and it creates some very interesting narrative challenges for me because I have to deal with that, and I have to keep the little boy safe somehow. So that it gets really creative and fun, and we've had some interesting characters that have been created to help keep the little boy safe because this is not a horror series.
This is going to be so much fun. We will delve into that in January.
Yeah, no, I just thought about that now. I was like, I didn't mention that. It's not generic fantasy.
That'll give us something else to bring up in January. So I am going to get off of here and go check on my husband. I left him sitting alone for an hour, which I don't normally do. There's usually someone sitting with him. But thank you again. I appreciate you so much, and I had a ball.
I did too. Thank you so much. This was such fun.
You are quite welcome, and I'll send you all that stuff tomorrow, my darling.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Okay. Good night.
You too.